Welcome in, everybody. Ready for a deep dive into faith?
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. So, we've got some really personal stuff to unpack today from one of you listeners out there.
Yeah, it looks like a mix of like reflections on faith and then some, I guess, practical advice too.
Yeah, and a lot of focus on salvation in Christianity. It's really cool how it mixes those personal thoughts with actual steps you could take, you know?
I see that. It's like it wants you to not just think about faith, but actually like do something.
Exactly. And one thing that really stood out to me reading this was how much it talked about those big moments in your life that kind of shape your faith, you know?
Hmm.
Like those turning points, whether it's doubt or huge hope, and how they all kind of weave together to make up your belief system.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it really got me thinking about my own too. I mean, what were your turning points? What experiences really stand out in your faith journey?
Oh, for sure. And building on that, one thing the
Hmm.
source does is kind of challenge that common view of salvation.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, it's not like presented as this finish line, right? You cross it and you're done. It's more like this lifelong journey,
Yeah.
always becoming more Christ-like.
It's not just being saved, but staying saved, you
Yeah.
know, like what that looks like every day.
Right, exactly.
And the source gets pretty specific about that. Like it
Bible.
emphasizes prayer and reading scripture and being in a community and letting grace into your life.
Yeah, it's active. It's about cultivating that relationship with God, not just assuming it's like on autopilot.
Totally. Which brings us to a really important passage that the source spends a lot of time on, Romans 10.9.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It even quotes the whole verse.
Yeah.
If you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you shall be saved.
Whoa. Yeah, there's a lot packed in there.
Yeah, like powerful stuff. But what's the real, I don't know, the weight behind those words, you know?
I mean, this verse is like central to how this specific framework understands salvation.
Yeah.
Right? It lays out the core ideas. You got to believe in Jesus as Lord and acknowledge his death and resurrection to get forgiveness for sins.
Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. But Lord and atonement can be kind of, I don't know, loaded terms, right?
I can.
What do they actually mean in this context? And I mean, how does that resonate with you?
Yeah, good points. So Lord here, it means like ultimate authority. You know, it's saying you're acknowledging Jesus as more than just a guy in history. He holds divine power and deserves your allegiance, basically.
That's
And
it.
atonement, that one's been debated for centuries. This source, it's coming from the perspective that humanity is separated from God because of sin, right?
It's okay.
So Jesus dying on the cross, that's the sacrifice to atone for those sins. And then him rising again, that symbolizes victory over death and the possibility of having that relationship with God restored.
So believing in that sacrifice and resurrection, according to the source, that's what bridges the gap between us and God.
That's how they see it.
That's heavy stuff. Makes me think about how my own views on atonement have changed over time.
I think that's true for a lot of people. It highlights how personal faith is. You know,
Yeah.
our understanding of these ideas, it can shift as we learn and grow.
For sure. But one thing that's fascinating is how this source doesn't just stop at individual salvation, you know?
Yeah, what do you mean?
It connects it to how you live in the world, how you interact with people, like personal change leading to wider impact.
Right, it makes sense. If salvation is about being in the right relationship with God, then it has to affect how we treat others too.
Exactly.
So yeah, the source, it emphasizes love, compassion, sharing hope, all of those things as flowing from that core belief. It's like the ripple effect of faith.
That's a great way to put it, the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder, though, if you believe you've been saved, what responsibility comes with that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Does it change how you see the world, how you treat people, your sense of purpose?
You're really hitting on something there. It pushes us to go beyond just knowing the beliefs and actually grapple with how they play out, you know, on a bigger scale.
Yeah, totally. Like, okay, I believe this, but what does it mean for how I live my life?
Right, exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not all just like deep thinking either.
Oh, right. What do you mean?
Well, the source actually gives you some exercises, you know, things you can do to like apply this whole belief system.
You're right. There are those reflection questions. And then there's that thing about memorizing Romans 10.9 and even a whole prayer written out, like if you want to confess Jesus as Lord.
And it's important to say here, we're not, you know, telling anyone what to do.
Of course not.
We're just laying out what's in the material, you know.
Right, exactly. This is about understanding this particular approach to faith, and then hopefully It gets you thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
Your own reflections, your own journey.
Exactly. And speaking of reflections, I think the source ends on a really powerful note.
Oh, what is it?
So we've talked this whole time about being saved, right?
Uh-huh.
But the source makes us ask, what does that even mean? To need saving. Like, what is it, according to this belief system, that we're being saved from?
Whoa. That's a big question.
It is. It makes you think about, like, all the underlying stuff in this belief system.
Yeah, totally. Like, what's the foundation of it all?
Exactly. And it kind of pushes us to grapple with some really big questions about, humanity and all that.
Like our relationship with God, good and evil, the meaning of life.
All of that.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. But it's those kinds of questions that make these deep dives so cool, you know?
I know what you mean.
It's not just about information. It's about really thinking deeply, understanding on another level.
Totally agree. It's about, like, wrestling with these concepts and figuring out what they mean to you.
And in this case, it's making us think hard about salvation, right?
Yeah, what does it really mean to be saved? It pushes you to examine your own beliefs and maybe even see them in a new way.
This has been a really fascinating look at faith and salvation. We've covered so much, from those big moments that shape our faith, to seeing salvation as an ongoing thing, to the message of Romans 10.9, and even how these beliefs could affect, like, the whole world, not just individuals.
And we've done all of that, remembering that you listening, you bring your own experiences to this.
Absolutely. This wasn't about telling anyone what to believe, just about helping understand a particular approach to it.
Right.
And hopefully it's made you want to, I don't know, dig into your own beliefs a bit more and see what resonates with you.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that faith, no matter what you believe, it's like so personal
Yeah.
and always changing.
It really is. Even just having these conversations, these deep dives,
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of that, digging a little deeper, maybe questioning what you thought you knew.
I love that. And on that note, I guess this is where we wrap up our deep dive into faith and salvation.
It has been a journey. It has. But to everyone listening, we hope you keep exploring these ideas, keep asking questions, keep searching.
Yeah, it doesn't end here.
Right. It's all about that deeper understanding.
Because at the end of the day, faith is a journey. You got to walk yourself.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.